Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom.
In our top story, Arab terrorists viciously attacked the Jewish state during Passover. The calm of the Feast of Unleavened Bread was broken by a simultaneous barrage of rocket fire out of Lebanon into northern Israel and from Gaza in Israel's south. Syria also joined the fight and fired numerous rockets into the Golan Heights. People living in the danger zones were sent scrambling for protective cover. Residents of the town of Sderot were instructed to stay near bomb shelters as air raid sirens sounded throughout the day and night. Israel's Security Cabinet convened a meeting as the holiday ended to discuss the latest escalation. Yuli Edelstein, the head of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, blamed Iran, saying the hardline Islamic Republic is responsible for the Hezbollah terrorist organization, which calls the shots in Lebanon. He said Israel must strike the head of the serpent.
Security has been heightened throughout the Jewish state after a wave of Arab terror attacks rocked the country. The Muslim month of Ramadan is a time of increased Arab violence against Jews. Terror groups disseminate false information in an attempt to incite violence. There's been a number of incidents, including a car ramming attack along the seaside promenade in Tel Aviv that killed one person and injured 7 others. Also, an attempted stabbing of a police officer, and a shooting which killed 2 sisters and gravely injured their mother. The IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, ordered a call-up of reserve soldiers and a bolstering of Central Command forces which oversee security in Judea and Samaria.
The Al-Aqsa Mosque sustained damage when violent Arabs rioted on the Temple Mount and holed up inside the Muslim house of prayer during Ramadan. Israeli police stormed the building, finding that combatants had smuggled explosives, clubs, and rocks to throw on Jews praying at the Western Wall below. Police released a statement saying they had arrested and removed 350 individuals that barricaded themselves inside the mosque.
Iran is responsible for nearly all of the threats to Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the heads of the Israel Security Agency, known as the Shin Bet, and the Israel Defense Forces General Staff, saying Iran is responsible for 95% of the security threats against us. Netanyahu alluded to the recently recited Passover liturgy, telling the security chiefs that in every generation there are those who rise up to destroy us. He said the enemies of Israel should not err. No debate will prevent us from wielding the sword and shield to defend ourselves and repel any aggression by them in order to ensure the continuity of the Zionist enterprise.
The U.S. Navy has deployed a guided missile submarine to the Persian Gulf amid rising tensions with Iran. The Pentagon said that the USS Florida had joined the United States Fifth Fleet in Bahrain to help ensure maritime security and stability. The vessel is capable of carrying up to 154 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles. According to the Wall Street Journal, American officials have intelligence reports indicating that Iran is plotting terrorist attacks across the region.
Finland has signed a deal to purchase Israeli military hardware. Just one day after Finland was accepted into NATO, Helsinki announced the purchase of the Israeli anti-missile defense system known as David Sling for $344 million. Finland's defense ministry said the acquisition of David Sling will create a new capability for the Finnish defense forces to intercept targets at high altitude.
The Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and the Ethiopian government's Institute of Foreign Affairs think tank have signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on national security issues. The agreement also covers water and food security. Dr. Yechiel Leiter, the Director General of the JCPA, explained that national security is not just a matter of tanks, planes, and soldiers. It's also bread. It's the ability to feed the people of one's sovereign territory. Ethiopia suffers from food scarcity, and 40% of Ethiopian children are reportedly malnourished. Dan Diker, the president of the JCPA, said Ethiopia sees itself as a gateway to the African Horn, and it would like to develop into more of a global diplomatic power.
A member of the Georgia House of Representatives, Esther Panich, has proposed a state resolution declaring April 29th as End Jew Hatred Day. This nationwide call to action aims to mobilize the public to stand up to anti-Semitism. Brooke Goldstein, co-founder of the End Jew Hatred movement, said, "We are grateful for the support of leaders like Representative Panich and to the Georgia legislature for issuing this resolution. And we urge more states to join with Georgia in calling for April 29th as End Jew Hatred Day."
Columbia University has announced that it will open a global center in Tel Aviv. The new facility will join 10 others around the world, which serve as hubs for local students, teachers, and researchers to work with Columbia's faculty, alumni, and students, allowing them to address a range of issues affecting the planet. Lee Bollinger, the president of Columbia University, said the Tel Aviv Global Center will enable the university to connect with individuals and institutions as well as with the alumni community in Israel, drawing them closer to the ongoing life of the university.
The French dairy giant Dannon has led a $3.5 million investment into the Israeli cultured milk startup Wilk. The company was founded in 2018 by Dr. Nurit Argov Argaman. Wilk uses cell-based technology to produce cultured human and animal milk. The deal with Dannon allows for the parties to examine strategic cooperation for the creation of milk substitutes that will include lab-grown, animal-free milk components. The agreement also states that Wilk and Dannon will examine the possibilities for commercial cooperation, which may include agreements for joint development and grants for projects in Europe and the United States.
6 Islamists with ties to the Iranian Secret Service have been arrested for planning a coup in Azerbaijan. Authorities in Baku described the suspects as Azeri nationals who were recruited by Tehran to destabilize the situation in the country. They were tasked with setting up a resistance squad aimed at establishing a Sharia state in Azerbaijan through armed unrest and the violent overthrow of the country's constitutional order. Israel holds strategic ties with Azerbaijan, and Eli Cohen, Israel's foreign minister, said the two countries share the same perception of the Iranian threats.
An underwater robot has spotted a rare species of fish in the Red Sea. The advanced subsurface remotely operated vehicle was surveying the ocean floor for the Israeli Nature and Parks Authority and Tel Aviv University when it honed in on a rare guitarfish. The ROV captured images of the fish and transmitted the pictures by live broadcast. The Gulf of Eilat is known as one of the most beautiful spots in the world to scuba dive. The coral reefs and colorful marine life make it a top destination for snorkeling and diving. Israel's Nature and Parks Authority has invested enormous effort into monitoring and maintaining the marine life in the area and preserving it for future generations.
A recently deciphered inscription proves the biblical account that the ancient kingdoms of Sheba and Israel were trading partners. The books of Kings and Chronicles describe a delegation from Sheba to Israel during King Solomon's reign, and for years archaeologists have sought to prove the connection between Sheba and ancient Israel. 11 years ago, Dr. Alat Mazar discovered a trove of ancient clay jugs while excavating at the Ophel site along the southern wall of the Temple Mount. One of the jugs held an inscription which Dr. Daniel Weinstub believes is written in the language of the Kingdom of Sheba. In a study published in the Hebrew University's Journal of Archaeology, Weinstub explains that the script is ancient South Arabian, the language of ancient Sheba. He said that deciphering the inscription on this jar teaches us not only about the presence of a speaker of the Sabian language in Israel during the time of King Solomon, but also about the geopolitical relations system in our region at that time.
The holy city of Jerusalem was packed with visitors over the Passover and Easter holidays. More than 60,000 tourists visited the Israeli capital, infusing nearly $100 million into the economy. According to the Ministry of Tourism, nearly 1 million tourists have visited Israel since the beginning of the year. The Jewish state welcomed 352,000 visitors last month alone. Israel's Minister of Tourism, Chaim Katz, hailed the positive trend, saying that it leads to prosperity for the tourism industry and strengthens the economy.
More than 15,000 Jews flooded the Western Wall Plaza to witness the biannual priestly blessing, or Birkat HaKohanim. This powerful prayer is recited by the priestly class. It is publicly recited twice a year during the intermittent days of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, and Passover. The text of this special blessing is found in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, where God commanded Moses to instruct Aaron to bless the children of Israel with these words. May the Lord bless and protect you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Jews around the world have begun counting the Omer. In Leviticus chapter 23 and Deuteronomy chapter 16, the Bible commands the children of Israel to count 50 days from after Passover until the Feast of First Fruits, or Shavuot. This grain harvest festival is also known as Pentecost on the Christian calendar.
Sirens will sound and all activity will cease for 2 minutes on Tuesday morning as the State of Israel observes Holocaust Remembrance Day. For the duration of the siren, the nation stands and pays solemn tribute to 6 million Jewish lives lost. The main memorial service will be held at Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Museum, where survivors light torches in memory of 6 million Jews murdered by Germany and its collaborators during the Second World War. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is General Amir Avivi. He is the head of the IDSF. General Avivi, thank you for being on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Tell our viewers a little about what is the IDSF.
IDSF is a combination of a think tank and a movement. We have more than 17,000 former officers and commanders and the operators that joined the organization. But we also have a very big research department, and we produce very high quality content and research for decision makers, for the general public and the young generation. We want to educate all of them, both in Israel and in the Jewish communities around the world, and decision makers also around the world.
Something that's amazing about the organization is not just the sheer numbers of generals and officers in the organization, but your ability to get the message out. I mean, you're reaching out to the youth, you're reaching out to the media, reaching out to the levels of government at the Prime Minister's level, in English and in Hebrew. How are you able to basically balance all those things at the same time?
So we understood from the very beginning that we need to shape the narrative. We need to win the hearts and minds of the Israeli people. And in order to do that, you have to work with the young generation to educate them. And educating them is going physically, to the high schools and the pre-army programs and talking to them. But it's also operating in social media, which they use, which is Instagram, which is TikTok, for example. So it's challenging. You have to take very complex issues and package them in a 1-minute TikTok. And this is something, we as not very young, not young as they are, but remember, we serve a lot of years in the army. I served 30 years. Throughout these 30 years, my soldiers were always 18. So you learn how to interact with them. You learn the language. So for us, it's easy to talk to them because, this is what we do all the time. We talk to 18-year-old soldiers.
What about our greatest allies, our Christian allies around the world? Is there any movement to try to reach out to them, to get them to understand what's going on? I mean, they're our greatest supporters on many fronts, but I don't know if they know about the real military issues that are happening in Israel and what are the repercussions?
Well, you are right, Josh. When you talk about Israel, if you care about Israel, the first thing you need to care about is Israel's security and prosperity. We need to be strong. We have many, many enemies. And we are reaching out today to evangelical communities. We want to educate about what's going on here. We want to share views. And we also want to help in the sense that I feel that, the challenge we are having with the young generation in Israel and also throughout the Jewish world is the same challenge that the evangelicals have with the young generation. It's distancing itself from core values. And they need to see and interact with proud Jews. And there are no proud Jews like our generals and commanders, people who have, led thousands of officers and commanders in combat. And this is something that we can bring and really interact with the young generation.
General Avivi, our biggest security threat, probably the only existential threat that Israel has is Iran. Last month they signed a peace deal, looks like, with Saudi Arabia. China's involved. They're very close to nuclear weapons. It's getting very scary. Is there a solution to this problem?
Well, I think, that it's definitely something that it's growing, this danger. We are seeing a Russian, Iranian, Chinese front emerging. It has a lot to do with the sanctions. I mean, the sanctions were rightly imposed on Russia. There are also sanctions on China. But these sanctions are creating a dynamic where the East is getting closer and closer together. They are creating a kind of coalition, and it's threatening the Middle East. And the Middle East is looking for leadership, and they want the US to step forward and build a coalition here in the Middle East. This coalition will bring peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. It will bring peace with Pakistan and Indonesia. It will enable taking down prices of oil and new routes of commerce. But without it, we are going towards chaos. And Israel will have to deal at the end of the day alone with this Iranian threat. And we will. I mean, if we have to really do what we need to do, attack, we'll do that. But it's not the right path. The right path is the US leadership. It's a coalition. It's posing a viable, serious threat on the Iranian nuclear program.
General Avivi, there are literally millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, I want to tell you, my friends, that national security, what we are dealing with, is first and foremost about national values. It's about a vision. It's about a deep, deep connection to our Jewish roots, to Zionism. This is what we are educating the young generation. Without spirit, no tank and no airplane can help. We need to be strong. We need to be connected to who we are. This is the key to succeed. We have the Iranian threat. We have a huge threat here inside Israel with the Israeli-Arab conflict, with the Palestinians. We also have delegitimation around the world. There are many, many issues we need to deal with. But the key issue, the most important thing in order to thrive and succeed, it's our values and our spirit, and this is what we are working on. This is the key issue.
Thank you, General Avivi, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grunberg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Due to the rise of anti-Semitism, the Jews of France are coming to Israel like never before. You will now witness the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth.
Both the departure from France and the reception at Ben Gurion Airport were colorful and festive events, full of hope for the future. The reception at Ben Gurion had the feel of a homecoming celebration, with flags and greetings, designed to convey to the Olim that they have come home and that everything possible would be done to guarantee a promising future for them and their children, and to ease their absorption. It began with the receiving Israeli ID cards already at the airport, and will continue with the help of a special program designed to streamline the bureaucratic process in the fields of employment, education, and housing.
אתם 206 עולים חדשים, אבל תחשבו כל אחד מכם סוגר מעגל של 2000 שנה. עשרות דורות של סבים וסבתות שלכם התפללו, לחמו, חלמו, ואתם עשיתם את זה.
אתם זוכרים, לפני שבועיים היינו בפריז, נפגשנו שם. נתן שירנסקי, אני, מודי זנדברג וכולם. ומה אמרנו? אנחנו נקבל אתכם בבית. הבית משותף של כולנו, מדינת ישראל.
אני רוצה לברך אתכם בשם משפחת קרן היסוד העולמית. זה רגע מרגש עבורכם וגם עבורנו. המדינה הזאת שייכת לכולנו. לא משנה איפה אתה גר, כחלק מהעם היהודי, ישראל היא המולדת שלך. קרן היסוד מגייסת תרומות, ויחד עם הסוכנות היהודית, השותפה שלנו, ומשרד הקליטה, אנחנו עוזרים לחלום הציוני להתגשם.
The Jewish community of France is the largest in Europe, numbering 500,000 Jews.
On est des vrais sionistes, on adore Israël et que c'est pas par peur ou voilà, c'est vraiment par envie parce qu'on avait envie de vivre ici, on avait envie de vivre en Israël.
Je suis très émue et je réalise pas. J'ai du mal à réaliser parce qu'on préparait ça depuis des années et des années.
Beaucoup de joie, une très grande émotion, j'ai énormément les larmes aux yeux et j'espère que tout le monde pourra réaliser ce rêve un jour.
Un projet de vie, ça fait depuis qu'on est mariés, c'était notre projet de monter en Israël.
Je trouve que c'est très impressionnant d'arriver dans un nouveau pays dans lequel on se dit on va arriver, on connaît entre guillemets personne, seul et au final c'est impressionnant parce qu'on n'est pas seul et c'est vraiment, c'est beau. Il n'y a que Israël pour faire ça, c'est vraiment, voilà.
Mesdames et messieurs, le Premier ministre de l'État d'Israël, M. Bibi Netanyahu.
Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue en Israël. יש פה קהילה מפוארת של יהודים שעלו מצרפת, הם יחבקו אתכם ויקבלו אתכם, אבל כל העם יקבל אתכם. אנחנו אוהבים אתכם, אנחנו מעריכים את המעשה הציוני שעשיתם, שהוא גם מעשה אישי. הוא מעשה אישי גדול ומעשה לאומי גדול.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, visit khisrael.org.
And now, shining light from Israel.
Here in the hills of Judea, in the capital city of Jerusalem, Yad Vashem is Israel's eternal memorial to the Holocaust. This beautiful building behind me is Israel's memorial to the 6 million Jewish people who were murdered in the Holocaust. In this underground building, scarring this mountain of memory, we learn about the history of what once was the great Jewish cultures of Europe, how most of those cultures were destroyed, and how yet the Jewish people still live, and how we have a land that we didn't have before the Holocaust. A visit here will also include talking about those incredible people who stood up for Jewish people, righteous among the nations. Visitors will hear names, will see sights, and will really come to understand what our museum means. Yad Vashem, memorial and name. This is a museum dedicated to the individuals. A visit to Yad Vashem will take the visitor on a journey of not only the low points of humanity, what the price of hatred and silence and indifference is, but also the heights human beings can reach. A small group of Jewish people were able to fight back with arms against incredible odds, fighting back not for freedom and fighting back not to defeat Nazi Germany, but fighting back for the ability to decide their own fate. And we also remember another type of resistance, which we call spiritual resistance. The Nazis could not break the Jewish people, and the Holocaust Jews still made art. They still prayed to God. They still educated their children. They still tried to find meaning in a world which seemed devoid of all meaning. And we talk and celebrate those things here at Yad Vashem. 6 million Jewish people were murdered in the Holocaust. The Nazis wanted their names to be erased, the fact that they were human beings to be erased. And in this incredible new experience, we have gathered together almost 5 million known names of Holocaust victims. Each one of these names is someone's beloved mother, a dear father, a beautiful baby, a daughter, a son, a beloved uncle or aunt. Each one of these names is all we have, and each one of these names restores the humanity to those people. It's what makes this experience so incredible, and I think so important and so necessary. The Nazis wanted to wipe the Jews out, that there should be no memory of them. And this enormous book is almost like a cemetery for people who have no earthly grave. Each name here shows us they didn't succeed, and each name here ensures that these people will never be forgotten. But there are also empty pages, because even the names we don't know have a place in our memory. They are the presence of absence. And if you look through the book, you'll notice there are empty pages waiting to be filled. We know they probably never will be filled. Almost 1 million people are completely gone, lost to history. But here at Yad Vashem, they have a place. And by looking at these blank pages, we remember, even if their names were wiped out, that we remember them as human beings, and we will make sure they are never forgotten. A visit to Yad Vashem also teaches us that every person does have the ability to stand up, that as bad as things may be, as dark as the world may be, that every person has the ability to bring in light. Each of these names, of these righteous people who stood up for their fellow human beings, their Jewish friends, neighbors, or even total strangers, fills us with a feeling of hope. We can stand up. We can be the people of light and not the people of darkness. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be waiting for you when you come to Israel. Please come and join us and see Yad Vashem with your own eyes and be part of history.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.